just entered the room where he's supposed to engage with members of the military or military veterans in the United States, and we expect that he's going to touch on the situation in the Middle East. He has been speaking in the last while, telling American journalists in different interviews that they're going to hit Iran very hard, basically saying that the worst is yet to come in terms of these war objectives that Washington has set itself where Iran is concerned. The greater goal, ultimately, as expressed on Saturday by Trump, is the overthrow of the Iranian government, because they insist, after killing the likes of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Saturday, that Iranians must then rise up against the government, if you will, and overthrow it. But Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, at a briefing held this afternoon, said this is not going to be like Iraq, where the United States was entangled in years of war after its invasion in the early 2000s, when they ultimately overthrew the leader of the Iraqi government, Saddam Hussein. Let's hear where they are right now.
Bless the family and friends of these great men of honor, O Lord, and forbid that we leave this place as mere admirers of their heroic deeds. Plant in our hearts a measure of their courage, that we might prove worthy of the freedom for which they and generations before them defended. And Lord, now let the light of liberty continue to shine on our great nation. We pray in the strong name of the one who guides us. This will defend. Amen.
Thank you very much, Chaplain Green. Wonderful job. Appreciate it. And thank everybody for being here, and please feel free to sit. So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You've got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful, by far, military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American service member who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible, and I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down, right now you see a very, very deep hole. But in about 1.5 years from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it, because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, will the pile drivers ever stop? You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here? You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be $400 million or less. Most people say $400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money, so I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, this is getting crazy. I said, don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months. But now for the reason that we're gathered this morning to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, 1 living and 2 no longer with us. So together, we recognize the exceptional valor of Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds. And maybe I could ask your families to stand because they're beautiful families. I got to meet them, and please.
U.S. President Donald Trump speaking there at a ceremony to honor U.S. Army veterans. He's also, as expected, been speaking about the war that he started with Iran in the Middle East on Saturday morning with the backing of Iran. He said that the U.S. believes that Iran had missiles capable of reaching Europe and very soon the United States. He says that the aim at this point is to stop Iran from declaring or being able to develop nuclear weapons. He says that would be an intolerable threat. Let's go to SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who's also been listening into those remarks by the U.S. president. Then, Sherwin, Trump, it would appear, still confident that he's still got the upper hand here.
Yeah, and an interesting segue at the end there, Tembakile, to discussing the renovations of the White House and the ballroom and the curtains hanging in the venue. I mean, wow, in a word, right? So to summarize, the president talking about continuing large-scale operations against Iran, grave threats he talked about from a terrorist regime. He talked about the Midnight Hammer military operation that sought to target Iran's nuclear facilities in the middle of last year. Iran refused to cease the pursuit of nuclear weapons. That is a contradiction to what the Iranians say, that their nuclear program was not for the development of a nuclear weapon, but was for academic research and for energy purposes. They would soon have had missiles that could reach the United States. Iran posed a clear and colossal threat to the United States. The Iranian regime with long-range missiles and nuclear capabilities would be an intolerable threat, he said. That is undercut, Tembakile, by a statement issued by Senator Mark Warner. He's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is what he said over the weekend. All the intelligence that he has seen suggested there was no imminent threat from Iran and that Tehran was a decade away from building missiles that could reach the United States. So that is being undercut, and, it kind of feeds into why Congress is also now seeking to reassert its role here in terms of a war powers resolution. Trump also criticized the JCPOA, that Iran nuclear deal which he withdrew the United States from, which was negotiated under the auspices of Barack Obama's presidency. He called Iran a sick and sinister regime. And then he laid out the objectives. He talked about destroying the missile capabilities and the ability to develop those missiles, the ballistic missiles. He wants to knock out the Navy. He said they will not have a nuclear weapon, which is one of the objectives. And he wants to stop the ability of Iran to fund and arm armies or proxies in the region. They want to knock out the threat that this military regime poses to the United States. In summary, what the President of the United States laid out there.
And briefly, Sherwin, I wonder what the burden of proof will be on the Trump administration, especially as the politicians in Congress, etc., begin to question the reliability of this claim that Iran was so close to the creation of nuclear weapons, because it does have the echoes of what we saw in the early 2000s, right, when weapons of mass destruction, or the claim of their presence, was bandied about to invade Iraq, yet no weapons of mass destruction were eventually ever found.
Yeah, and that is the big concern yet. It's, we've seen this movie before, is some of the narrative you hear in moments like this, and understand also what the Omani foreign minister said to undercut what the United States president has said. The mediator in those US talks, he said they were making progress. He said they were closer to a deal than they ever were before, weeks away. He talked about how Iran essentially would be limiting its stockpile of enriched uranium, which is critical to a pathway to a nuclear weapon, which the Iranians said they were not pursuing anyway. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how members of Congress engage on these very issues. Debate is due to start in the United States Congress. We understand a vote in the Senate on a war powers resolution in an effort to restrain this military action, and begin asking questions as to why, and sort of interrogating the narrative that the executive is putting out there. And remember this, there are political risks here for everybody involved in the United States. There is a major election coming up in November, the midterms, that will determine who controls the House of Representatives and the House and the Senate. And of course, this is, depending on how long we go here and the cost that will be suffered by Americans, both financially and in terms of service people, 4 already dead, that becomes a political football in the United States, given the political consequences that could emerge from that election in November.
Sherwin Brasby is SABC News correspondent live for us in New York, keeping an eye on the war in the Middle East and those remarks made by US President Donald Trump a short time ago. Sherwin brings us to 2 minutes after 7.